become normal for those who hold responsibilities. So when I say he's acting on behalf of the cabinet, he might be the point person. I'm not asking the cabinet to resign, but it's the point person who acted on behalf of the cabinet. If an allegation is made of the matter, he should be responsible enough to offer his resignation or to step aside for the time being until the matters are finally cleared up. But we just don't have that.
The dossier, anybody wants to, the
The
purpose it will serve and its contents?
Well, I think that Clive has already pointed out one aspect that is missing. I think the dossier will highlight the many acts that have taken place, the names of the many persons who have been murdered by the Phantom Squad, the circumstances under which they were murdered. Some of this is not unknown to the people of Guyana. We are just putting most of this in a proper document. I mean, there was a publication out some time ago about 200 young men with names published not so long ago. And so what the dossier is trying to do is to pull together all these bits and pieces of information and put it together. It will also contain, I believe, the statements and pronouncements of the various opposition and other civil society organizations on the issues concerned, and obviously present a compelling case as to why is it we need to have the commission of inquiry into these matters of such grave national concern. But I mean, Clive is coordinating this.
But I think I should make the point, because some people may be confused out there. I need to make the point that a dossier can't be a political essay as to why you think the government should be investigated. It has to be a document that creates a prima facie case for some further inquiry, which means that the data quoted in the dossier has to be substantiated, or I should say have to be substantiated by independent sources of information. So, for example, the dossier would seek to use information put out by the GHRA, the Guyana Human Rights Association, as evidence of an independent human rights organization that comments on important issues in Guyana and the steps that they've taken. We've discussed earlier this issue of torture. They have written to the United Nations on the matter of torture. They put out a number of statements on torture. So we can cite that as sort of evidence that is a prima facie case about issues related to torture. We can cite the independent expert who came here from the United Nations, I think it was last year, to investigate minority issues, wherever that might support some of the concerns that we have, including the deaths of persons. We can support it by quoting, for example, the actions that we've taken in the past, like writing to CARICOM, sending citizens petitions to CARICOM and that type of thing. That's the way in which we have to make the dossier a document that is not a propagandistic document produced by the opposition parties on their behalf and written by them independent of any check-in sources, but a document based on the recording of independent sources that provides some prima facie case for the investigation. So even if, for example, the names are quoted here, the call of the persons who were executed or killed or whatever it is, the call has to be made for a further investigation of those names to be sure that they are correct. So the tribunal, part of the tribunal's responsibility will be to, let's say, bring justice to those issues, bring closure to the families and friends. That's how you have to present the dossier. You can't just go and say that we know that 300 people have been killed. That's the work of the tribunal to establish. We could say that our own recording suggests that these are the number of persons who may have been unlawfully killed in Guyana and should be the subject of some investigation by an independent source, and then cite it in that way.
This dossier goes beyond Roger Khan, and
no, the dossier takes the position that the Roger Khan Simmels issues constitute the tipping point, that it has to be linked to the context of development of these issues over recent years, like the issues of torture, inhumane treatment, all of these other abuses that have been taking place. So it tries to fit it into that context, but treats the proximate cause for the production of the dossier as the Robert Simmels trial and the Roger Khan trial.
So, like I asked that question, Professor Thomas, because it was mentioned earlier that a serving policeman, was found in the presence of Roger Khan
Yeah.
when they
Yes.
But that
equipment was
type
found.
of thing we did.
That will be part
Yeah,
of
yeah.
this.
And for example, the affidavits by Bacchus will be inside the document too as evidence, as part of the appendix documents that are included with the document.
So, is your group, the group that is preparing this dossier, seeking and inviting other submissions from persons?
Yes,
Welcome.
welcome.
Welcome them, because there are still people, as you know, there who, because of fear, have not come forward. Some of them may still be persuaded to reduce what they know into affidavit form or to give statements. And so there is an ongoing appeal, yes, for persons and organizations with facts in hand to help. And I should say, I mean, and I believe I have the liberty to say this, that the dossier as is developed is not going to be a one-off. I'm sure that, there are going to be
Addendum?
new addendum, there may be second and third editions of it, because
Of course.
as the process unfolds
Yeah.
and more information comes forward, we are going to have to keep adding until such time that all that we know or all that is out there is garnered and brought together into one volume.
Assuming someone wants to bring forward some information, how do they do it? Where do they go? Telephone numbers, address, organizations?
Well, the
Where?
coordinator of the joint opposition parties at this point in time is Desmond Trotman, and you can get him at 227-4608 or 227-4609. So persons who want to contact can contact us through those numbers.
Have you set yourself now a firm time for getting this dossier ready? Because the call is for an immediate international
Yeah,
commission.
yes, but the thing is that we bound by the availability of the documentation from the United States, and that has not yet
working on that.
come in. We're working on that. We'll be meeting on Thursday to consider the draft has already been written up.
Of course, there's nothing to prevent the government of Guyana and President Jagdeo agreeing to have the international inquiry even before the dossier.
Even
The
without the
reason-
dossier.
Without the dossier, because we are only forced to prepare a dossier because the government behaves as though the moutings of the opposition are figments of our imagination. And therefore, despite the press releases over the last 6 years, the glaring evidence of murder on our streets, the glaring evidence of what has transpired from the front pages of the national newspapers, the government seems to be in denial, ignoring the existence of all these things. And therefore, that is why we've been forced to produce a document that can stand scrutiny and that can be presented to the international community. But certainly, what I want to say, even though we're working on the dossier, it should not in any way be used as an excuse. Well, they're waiting on the dossier, as they were saying, they were waiting on the court files from the United States and the civils before the police investigate. It should not in any way interfere, though we are anxious to get the dossier finished.
Can I ask you whether the joint opposition parties have in fact made a direct and specific request to the president for a meeting at which this issue is going to be put in?
We'll be meeting, as I said before, on Thursday, and in that meeting we make a decision on how we go forward with the dossier. But we have to, of course, consider such issues because they're important. It will be necessary to exploit whatever opportunities might exist internally in support of the dossier and the inquiry. So we have to consider all that.
I think as well that the president is one of several important office holders who we
Attorney General.
the Attorney General of Ghana, the Chancellor, the Chief Justice, the Speaker of the National Assembly. These are persons who
The international
I believe,
community.
apart from the international community who as represented in
Yeah,
Ghana,
yeah.
who should receive copies of this dossier before or simultaneously as we go with it abroad as well. So he is one of, as I said, one of the office holders who we will present our case to.